First and foremost, you have to understand it's not about diets. Diets are not sustainable. It's a lifestyle change. You have to accept it. And and I only work with those people who are willing to accept this within themselves, and their mindset is there, that they realize they want it. You have to want it bad enough. And when I say bad enough, I mean, not that, oh, you might backslide or something like that, because we all do that. We're all going to come into those instances where we might want to give up. It's not about that. It's about wanting it bad enough to make it happen, and having an open enough mind to try new things and be adaptable to change.
So today we have Karen Hauserman with us. Karen has an amazing story of transforming her life, her health, her wellness, her fitness, all of her life really, from a place in which she was in a lot of pain, discomfort, and it wasn't going well. So Karen has, in the last 12 years, managed to keep off a substantial amount of weight, which is amazing in itself. But now she's moved beyond the personal, and she's going to tell us, one, how she's done it, but also how she's moved forward and what she's doing to help others on this journey. Karen, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Tamlet. Thank you for having me.
Please, it's Johnson.
Johnson, okay.
Karen, take us back to the beginning of your wellness journey, if you may.
Okay. Well, there's a lot to tell, but let's try to make this as concise as possible here.
Yeah.
Back when I've been obese pretty much all my life, or overweight, and back in 2010 is when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was at a Starbucks, and I was closing a Starbucks with a friend of mine who worked there, and we were having a nice conversation, and suddenly I had an event, and I didn't really know what it was at that very moment until I was on the floor, and then had realized that I was having a heart attack. And this event had kept me on the floor for about 10 minutes, and it was a wake-up sign for me, and it had caused me to really realize what was happening in my life. But until I got to that point and realized that I had to drive home with knowing that I had just had a heart attack, and at that point I was still in I guess a phase that I didn't know what was happening with me. And I went home and I retreated to my room. I didn't even talk to anybody, and I just laid there and stared at the ceiling, and my family wanted to know what was going on. And so I just said I wanted to be left alone, and I laid there. And
can I just color in the picture a bit, Karen?
Okay.
So if I was seeing the Karen of that period, okay, what would you have looked like? What would I have seen? Am I seeing, what sort of weight are you talking about? Because I have to say, somebody looking at you now is not, we're talking a totally different world, aren't we?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was morbidly obese for a good portion of my adulthood, but obese and overweight for almost my whole life. I mean, so at that point, I was probably at my highest weight, that I'd ever been. And that was over 400 pounds. And, I was a ticking time bomb. I had a lot of health conditions, things that, they hadn't progressed seriously enough to put me in the hospital or on, medications or anything like that. But I couldn't walk across the room without being out of breath. I couldn't climb stairs without assistance or going very slowly. And it was just, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I had tried pretty much everything, every diet imaginable, and nothing was working. So
So how old were you then, or how many years ago were we looking at, Karen?
well, this was about 12 years ago that this happened. So, you know, about 43 years old at that time. And, I felt like I was pretty much my whole adult life, I was overweight or obese. And I felt like I was okay, though. I didn't feel like I was sick, or, that something was going to happen to me. I guess I was in denial, and for a good portion of it. And it was until I had that event at that Starbucks that it really woke me up. I mean, I knew I wanted to lose the weight. All my life I had tried to lose the weight, and nothing stuck, or I lost it and gained it back double. And so it wasn't until I had that heart attack, and it was a minor heart attack, but it was enough to scare me, and it was enough to make me realize that I wanted to see my kids grow up. I wanted to see, any potential grandkids that I might have, or, I wanted to live my life. I thought I'm too young. I'm too young to die, and I don't want it to happen this way. And I want to finally, I just didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, and I knew something was missing.
So let me get this right, because somebody may not believe what is happening here. You're telling me you're in Starbucks, you fell on the floor, and were you unconscious? Were you in pain? And then the other thing is, then you say, well, you just got up and went home. And I'm thinking, well, how is all of that possible?
Well, it was pretty classic, the symptoms. I'm sitting there having my triple latte Americano, and which was pretty typical for me. But, I worked out that way. And so I just gotten off of work, and I was relaxing, and I was having a good time with a friend. And I had the classic symptom. I had the pain shot up my left arm, and it went around to my back, and around my neck, and then down, and then around my midsection. And I mean, it was the classic symptoms that made me realize. And when this was happening, it happened so fast, and it put me on the floor, it doubled me over, and it put me on the floor. And I knew because I had worked in the medical industry, and I knew what that was. And I just stayed there on the floor because I was in a lot of pain, and the pain didn't go away at first. And so my friend wanted to call, the EMS, and wanted them to come out, or, take me to the hospital. And I was like, no, I'll be fine. I was very stubborn. And so I got up, and after about 10 minutes, and I decided I was just going to leave. I just told him I was going to go home. I'll be fine. Wow. And, wow. He didn't know. He didn't ask, like, oh, well, what was that, or anything like that. We didn't go into any details. I just said, I'm going to leave. And I didn't tell him I knew what that was, that I was having a heart attack, because I knew it would upset him even more. And he'd want, definitely insist on driving me himself if he had to. So I just left. And, it was a good drive home, but I was able to make it all the way home, and go into my.
When you say good drive home, is that what, 5 minutes, 20 minutes?
It was about 42 miles.
Wow, you drove 42.
I did. I drove 42 miles, and I just, I prayed the whole time that I wasn't going to get into an accident, something wasn't going to happen. But I said, nope, I'm going to make it home. I'm going to be fine. And I did. And I got into my room, and I just lied there, and I stared at the ceiling until, I fell asleep. And then I woke up the next morning, and,
what did you do the next morning? Did you go to hospital? Did you phone a doctor? What did you do?
No. I was not a very good compliant patient to be. No, I actually retreated into the kitchen and started making breakfast for my family. I started making the coffee and the bacon and eggs. And wow. As I'm making this, I'm looking at it going, what am I doing? I literally just had a heart attack last night, and I am standing here making bacon and eggs for my family. What am I doing? And I need to stop. And so I stopped right in the middle of it. And I walked away, and my family looked at me like I was crazy. And, well, what are you doing? We're hungry. Come on. And I said to my husband at the time, I said, you're going to have to take over. You're going to have to feed the kids. I said, I just can't do it. And he's like, are you all right? Are you feeling? Yeah, I just got to go lie down. So I went back into the room, and I just lie down on the bed again. And I stared at the ceiling, and I prayed. And I said, please give me a sign, Lord. I said, I don't know, if for sure this was a heart attack, but I know the signs, and I feel in my heart it truly was. And so I just I lied there again, and I fell asleep for a little while. And when I woke up, I realized that I needed to change, and I believe that was my sign. And that God was telling me I needed to change. And I eventually I did go to the doctor, and he did confirm I did have a minor heart attack. And then he asked me how, when was the last one I had? And I'm like, well, I didn't have a heart attack before. This was it. And he's like, no, according to EKG, you've had at least one other occurrence. And apparently I didn't even know it, so that I took as as probably the most prominent sign that I really needed to take this seriously, because what would happen the next time? It could be a major heart attack. And I didn't want that to happen, because heart disease runs in my family. My mother had a triple bypass at the age of 50. And here I was in my early 40s. And I thought, wow, I don't want that to happen to me. So I got
you could see the bus coming. You knew what was coming along the way.
I did. I really, at that point, it was my wake up call, and I knew I had to make the change. I didn't know how, because I tried so many times and failed so many times. And so I decided, well, on January 1st, I was going to, start a New Year's resolution, and I was going to keep it. And I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I was going to figure it out.
How far away were you from January the 1st, just out of interest?
This was on Black Friday when this happened.
Wow.
So it was the day after Thanksgiving here in the U.S. And so I enjoyed the rest of the holidays. I mean, modestly, not like I would normally do, because I had all this weighing on my head, in my mind. Oh, wow, I gotta still be kind of good here, and not go too far off track. But I was determined that was going to be my start date, was January 1st.
Yeah. And what happened at January 1st? Did you start going to the gym? Did you start a new diet? Tell us what happened then, Karen?
Well, January 1st, I started just researching. I had a lot of experience researching from my my college days, and so I thought, well, I'm just going to figure it out. I'm just going to see what I can find. And I started researching, because I had depended on medical doctors to tell me what I needed to do. And all they kept saying was, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight, you need to lose weight. And I was supposed to have gastric bypass surgery when my youngest, right after he was born, and that was in 2000, and it never happened. And so I decided that I was going to just jump on this computer and figure it out. So I started researching and just throwing keywords in, and I started coming up with a lot of information from nutritional experts, not medical doctors, but they were nutritional experts, but some of them were doctors. And so I just started picking information that resonated with me. If it stood out and it really, or if I went back to it after looking at it, to me it meant I needed to read more into it. So I started picking information that resonated with me, that made an impact on me, and I wanted to know more about. And as I started doing that, I thought, well, okay, now I'm going to join a gym. So I did join a gym. I joined Planet Fitness, and I started going 5 days a week. And I had a little personal trainer there who was helping me. And I developed this strength training and interval training routine with a little bit of cardio because I couldn't really do much cardio. And so I did that, and I just started again pulling from different experts information that I liked. And so at first I got this little calculator on the point system from Weight Watchers from my mom. She had, and so I pulled out, and I actually started a journal, which was what kept me accountable. And so in this journal, I put everything that I ate, everything I put in my mouth went in this journal.
Can I just pause you a minute there, Karen? So the first thing is you say you started to research. Does that mean that, let's say, let's pick something like fiber, for example, or cauliflower, and you're saying, well, oh, I like that. I like what Michael Greger talks about cauliflower. Does that mean that you then took that information and did something with it? Did you start to use it in a particular way? What's that process like for you, or what was it like?
Well, it wasn't quite that detailed at that point. It was more basic. It was laying the groundwork, if you will. And so after I started, using this point system, and it was like baby steps that I took. And every time I tried something new, I got better results. And so I went through these phases. And the first phase was, okay, I'm going to track all the food I eat by a point system and put it in this journal. And when I run out of points, I stop eating. That didn't last very long, only because I used up all my points by late morning. And so I'm like, okay, I'm still hungry. So I thought, this isn't working. And so I need to try something else. So I would, as I'm pulling information from these different experts, I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds good. So maybe I need to try all organic foods. And so I tried just switching everything over to organic, and everything I bought was organic, produce, everything. And then I thought, well, okay, now this expert says I shouldn't eat, pork or meat. And so I thought, well, I'll get rid of pork first, because my body at that point was really not, it wasn't adapting well to the pork. It wasn't digesting it well. And so I thought, well, okay, this will be easy. So I got rid of the pork. And so it was like baby steps. So it was, that came first, and then came the beef, and then came the chicken, and then, and so as I went through these phases, I started losing weight. And each time I tried something new, because I bore easy, so I had to keep going with something new and change it up. And I kept getting better results. And I'm like, okay, so this is working.
So would you say you are on a diet? Or
No. I will not say it's a diet, because diets are not sustainable.
Right.
It is a lifestyle change. And it took me this many years to figure it out, my whole almost, half my adult life, to figure out that it's not about diets. All those fad diets I tried, I could lose weight, gain it back double. It was a lifestyle change. I needed to figure out how to eat all over again. And it truly was life-changing. Most people, in my family, my friends, nobody believed in me. They didn't think I could do it because I failed so many times. But they thought it was too radical. And they're like, wow, this is really extreme. I mean, you're just like, no meat? Oh my God, where are you getting your protein? And, as I went through these phases, though, I was losing weight. And it wasn't until the first 20 pounds that I really got serious with it. Because after that first 20 pounds, I really started seeing it, physically seeing the difference. And my clothes were getting too big on me. And when they started falling off me, I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. And I was feeling better too. It wasn't that I was just losing the weight. I was actually feeling better. My joints didn't ache as much.
And I guess you're able to walk across the room.
Oh yeah. I mean, after I started losing the weight, I was able to walk a little further. I was able to do more at the gym. I was able to incorporate cardio. And even though it was pretty much confined to, the treadmill or, something, light that I could handle, but I was able to increase that over time and try up new things. But I because I get bored easily and I like to be creative. I don't want, didn't want my diet or, this new lifestyle to be too simple. So I thought, well, if I'm eliminating this and I'm eliminating that, and what am I going to replace it with? And how am I going to make this interesting enough to keep me going? And so that's where I had to develop a plan along with the tips from these experts I was pulling, on how to change this up, where, eventually I got to, going plant-based, but it took quite a while to get to that point.
When you say a while, are we talking weeks, months, years?
Well, it was during the first year of 2011 that I lost about, a little over 80 pounds. And, as I was going through this phase, I'd gotten to the point of, pescatarian, and so I had given up the pork first, then the beef, then the chicken. I had a real hard time giving up the seafood. I loved my salmon and I loved my shrimp. And but I also loved cheese and eggs, and so those were the last things to go. But when I got to that point, and I was pescatarian, I had lost already a significant amount of weight, and I felt really good, and I knew this was working. So I thought, okay, I got to keep going. But I swore up and down I would never ever go vegan. I said that's not going to happen. It's just not. And I said, I'm not giving up my seafood. I already gave up this meat. I'm not giving up the seafood and the cheese and the eggs. It's not happening.
I like the fact of what you've done, because, like you say, a lot of people, and I'm sure you'd say the same, who've gone from diet A to B to Z, you're just following somebody else's recommendation. So you're saying, hold on, I'm doing some me search. Not research, but me search, in that you find this piece of information, you apply it, you come back and you try something else, and you keep adjusting. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down, in that, where you're following, like I said, Atkins, you're following the paleo, you're following the keto, and you're just following. And what it sounds like you've done differently is you've made your baby steps, then you made some bigger steps, and then you keep adjusting it for yourself. Is that about right?
That is correct. And I'm always changing. I'm a lifelong learner, in a lot of things. College taught me that. And so I'm always learning, and I'm always keeping an open mind. And so I always have to change and adapt. And so as I went through these many phases and different steps along the way and started eliminating things, I would also be adding things, so I knew that I was weighing my food at first, so I would take, when I was still eating chicken, for instance, I would take, a piece of chicken, I would weigh it and knew how much it weighed. And, then I got bored with that. I thought, well, this isn't going to continue, because I'm just not going to stick with this. So I said, I'm going to have to eyeball it. So I eyeballed how much I thought. And then instead of using a dinner plate to keep my portion sizes in control, I used a salad plate, a small plate, and I would fill that, and I didn't stack it up. I just made it one level. Once I filled it, that was it, And so, but I also wanted it to be colorful. So I had to include, I would have, my protein, then I would have my vegetable, and then I would have, maybe some rice or something like that. So I would, make it very versatile but creative and colorful, and because that kept me interested when I could see all that color, and I thought, this is appealing to me, to my senses, to my visual senses, and so that was important to me to keep me going. And but taste also, so I had to find replacements for the things that I was taking away, and there wasn't a whole lot of options back then, as there are today. But I'm whole food plant-based, so I don't rely on, these highly processed foods or, packaged foods, because to me it's more important to take the whole food and then just, get creative with that. And it's all about the spices and the herbs.
Right. Just let me switch you back to the gym.
Okay.
Now, in my head, I'm imagining I'm standing next to this woman, and she's a fairly large woman. Uh, was there any shame or guilt or what am I doing here or comparison to other people as you're going along? How was there any of that? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Well, there was some of that. I mean, my whole life, I in some ways compared myself to others and thought, gosh, I really want to, I want to be thin. I want to be attractive to the boys because I didn't feel like, when I was younger that I was attracted to the boys. I didn't have a lot of boyfriends. I didn't go to my senior prom. When I got married, that was one of the only men I had ever dated and didn't even date him for very long. And, and I was in a rocky marriage too. So I thought, I want to be thin, but it needs to be for me, not for everybody else or what they think I need to be. It needs to be for me. But I want it because I want to look good and I want to feel good in my own skin. And so when I was at the gym, I would compare myself to the others, to these hard bodies and these girls who looked a lot better than me. But then I would have to pull myself back a bit and say, wait a minute, I'm here because of that heart attack that woke me up, and I need to focus and realize that I'm going to get there. And I don't need to worry about comparing myself to the others because I have enough motivational drive to make this happen. I just have to figure out how to make it happen without focusing on, okay, I want to look like that girl over there, or why don't I already look like that girl over there? So it wasn't very difficult.
It was more the motivation was inside you for health reason rather than comparing yourself to whoever was on your right or your left.
Yeah, I've always been self-motivated and driven in everything I do, especially my career. And so I just kind of transferred that energy over into the area of my life that apparently I was neglecting, and that was my health. And so, putting aside, and not really putting it aside, but just, again, transferring that energy over and saying, well, if I could do it for that, I can do it for this. And I have to realize that this is important because without this, I don't have the career anyway. I mean, if I don't have my health, what do I have? So that I had to, force myself to focus on, and that became my priority over my career.
So if someone was listening and they just heard you say, oh, well, I went organic, and they might be thinking, well, doesn't that cost a lot of money? Are you a rich person? How can you do this? How do you do it if I'm on a tight budget? And how do you do it? Or how did you do it?
Well, it's a great misnomer that organic is always more expensive, or that somebody can't afford it, or I have a family of 4, I have kids, I can't do this, I have to. It's not true, because once we place our priorities properly, and we know, because we'll put all the money into that smartphone or that car or that computer, but we won't put it into our health. And and so we have to prioritize what's most important. So that's what I did. And no, I wasn't rich. I was far from it. Actually, when this happened, I was supporting my entire family of 5 on unemployment after, well, it wasn't quite unemployment yet. I was working at that time, but it wasn't a real high income. And so, and then after that job ended, then I was, supporting the family on unemployment, which was even less income. And I was still doing it, and I was still pushing through this. And then right in the middle of this, we had moved the family back to Michigan. And so, we had gone through those changes as well. And I kept going because I had that self-motivation. But it's not hard. It's not expensive if you know how to do it right. And a lot of it is smart shopping, and and realizing that how to shop the perimeter of the store as opposed to the center of the store where the most expensive products are. So I developed the system, again, pulling from these tips from these experts, and then formulating this plan and putting together this plan that was going to enable me to eat the foods that I wanted to eat and still keep within my budget and to do this right. And so even before I got to the point of when I came back to Michigan and starting my own organic garden, I was able to go to the store and purchase everything organic and still do this and still get enough food, because once I taught my body how to properly eat and how to eat smaller portions and more frequently, and there was a lot to, you know, the method that I chose. It was, my body was filling up faster. I wasn't consuming as much food. And so the cost went down. You know, when I got rid of purchasing the high, you know, the expensive meats, which were very costly, the highly processed foods, which were very costly, and I was buying whole foods, I was actually saving money. And so when I explain this to people and I show them how they can actually do this on a budget and get more than enough food, and it won't be boring, and they can still eat the things they like, and you can still, you know, occasionally have this or occasionally have that, you know, and still keep it within your budget and still be able to afford to feed your family. Because I was feeding them differently than I was feeding me. You know, I was eating all organic and doing this as I progressed into then the full plant-based stage. I was doing this, but still feeding them what they wanted. And
so that sounds quite difficult to me, in the sense of I'm cooking something for me, and there's the rest of the family eating something totally different. Is there any sort of temptation that you're saying, well, maybe today I'll have a break, or maybe, you know, I'll eat what you have rather, because I'm just too tired today to do this?
well, because of this, again, the self-motivation, I mean, I did have, you know, as I was going through these phases, I allowed myself one day a week in the beginning where that was my free day. I could eat whatever I wanted on that free day. And that was on Sundays. On Sundays was free day. And so, you know, I would have, you know, a bagel, or I would have a donut in the beginning, you know, or I would have, you know, something that was very, you know, that I considered enjoyable, fun food, you know. And so I really didn't, I wasn't as serious, you know, but then I said, that's it. That's the only day. And then as I did that, and as I was progressing though, I was like, well, I'm eating this and now I don't feel so good, you know. And when I would go back to my plan and what I was doing, and I felt better, and I thought, well, eventually that cheat day went away, you know, because the cheat day was designed to see if I was going to backslide or if I was going to stay on focused and on target. And when I realized how the food was making me feel, the bad food versus the good food, it was pretty easy to stick to it. And I had my plateaus and stuff that I had to get through, and I just had to get more creative. And I'm the creative type, so it wasn't hard to change things up, try something new, and figure it out.
So you're now 12 years down this path. Your lifestyle has changed totally, and you are helping people along the way to find their own journey in terms of wellness. How do you do that now then, Karen? What's your business like, in if we can call it a business, for helping people along the way?
Well, you know, as I was going through this, I was working in, you know, within the medical industry, along with the interdisciplinary team, you know, working in podorthics and orthotics prosthetics industry, and working with a lot of doctors and working with a lot of diabetics. And as I was going through this phase, you know, I had to stay focused on them, and I had to stay focused on me, and I had to separate the two. But as I got through this, and, you know, and when this started, I had just completed my MBA, and, you know, and had all these goals, you know, and everything came to a complete halt because my health became the priority over my career. Although I was still advancing my career at the same time when this started. So it was a well, yeah, I guess you could say a multidisciplinary New Year's resolution, because it was multifaceted, and is what I was trying to say. And so I was still focusing on my career to a degree, but not so much as I was my health. And so as I started progressing through this and working on my career, I was still pretty steady, and things weren't changing as quickly as my health was. And except for the fact that I was just progressing and moving up the ladder into different directions where I wanted to go. But I wasn't I wasn't combining the two. And it wasn't until probably, I'd say a few years ago, maybe like 2016, is when I finally realized that I needed to step it up a bit. And I'd already taken myself self-employed at this point in my industry. And I was delving into sales. I was selling bracing products to doctors, and I was doing house calls with diabetic patients, and that was my business, and I enjoyed it very much. But I felt like something was still missing, and so I needed to take it up a notch with my career as well, and incorporate the two. And so that's when I had decided that I was going to start making my business a little bit more plant-based. And so I started getting away from leather-based products, and just tried to take it in a different direction. And it was very slow because my industry wasn't very welcoming of this, and it was all, very dependent on leather. And so it was very difficult transition. And then when COVID hit, it pretty much killed my business.
Mm.
I was in California when it hit, and I had to drive across the country and come back to Michigan because I just knew I needed to come back. And so I came back, and when everything shut down and I couldn't get into the doctor's offices to sell my products, I couldn't get to my patients in their homes, everything came to a complete standstill with my business. And that's when it really was like a second wake-up call at that point. And I realized, well, maybe this is for a reason that this happened. Everybody has been bugging me for years. Why aren't you focusing on everything that you've done with your health and your weight loss, and why aren't you pushing that as a business? Why are you focusing on your podorthics, which you're beating your head against the wall trying to change your industry to make it more plant-based when they're apparently not ready to go there? And so I said, okay, well, I'm still not giving up on that. I still want to disrupt my industry, and change that. But I saw something else that was there, that had been there all along, that I had neglected, and that was focusing on helping others do this as well. And I talked to them casually. I tried to talk to family members. I tried to talk to friends. I had, put the information out as much as I could and shared with everybody as much as I could about my story, and hoping that I could resonate with others and help them overcome weight issues and improve their health as well. Because I'd gotten rid of diabetes, I'd gotten rid of heart disease, I'd gotten rid of my chronic joint pain, I improved my eyesight. I had some amazing results from this, not just losing 268 pounds and over 100 inches off my body. It was a complete lifestyle change and complete overhaul. And it was like starting my life over. So that's when I realized I had to start this business.
No, that's really interesting when you say that, because it brings me back to where we started, of saying when you started to research with a whole different view of different experts and picking and choosing and all of this sort of stuff. Then I'm thinking, but Karen, after 12 years, you're on the other side of the fence in terms of expertise, because you've lived through this and you can say this with some authority, not necessarily with a 3 letters behind your name that says nutritionist, but a lived experience is so valuable. And what you can, and I'm sure that's where you are helping, you've helped people, and you can help people, and I guess that's where you're going now in terms of we've talked before about planted for change, and I think it makes so much sense where you're going.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Planet for Change came about again when after COVID hit and I lost the other business, and I thought I'm not one to give up. I've never been. I've always had a very strong, ambitious personality, very driven throughout my entire adult life. I mean, right even in high school and going forward. I mean, I've always been like that. But I knew that I just needed to go in a different direction. And I wasn't ready to give up on my podorthics yet. I just needed to the focus needed to shift. And so that's when I decided, well, I'm going to create a new business. I'm going to create one that is, I'm looking at how people are being affected by COVID and how, this is, it's become a public health emergency. And so I'm absolutely positioned well at this point to push this forward. And I need to really focus on this because this is more important now than it ever has been. And so I decided to start Planet for Change, but I chose the name because it could still incorporate my podorthics, and planted meaning the plantar surface of the foot.
Mm.
And so in change meaning just that, being adaptable to change. And so when I started this business, I realized, well, the focus is, of course, it's going to shift. We're now doing a 360 where the focus is going to be on health and weight loss, wellness. And so I decided to go back to school, back to my roots. I used to do massage, my own massology back in the 80s, right out of high school. And so I did some reflexology within that and decided that I wanted to do that. And for years I had wanted to incorporate the reflexology in with my podorthics, and I did. And I did some foot massages, and I did do that because I had the skills there, but I wasn't, I wasn't at the point where I was doing just that. And so I had looked into it to see if I could find a school just for that. I did. And I went back and got recertified in just the reflexology, and then I incorporated that right into my business. And that is a very large focus of my business now. Is what I do is I help people learn how to heal themselves from within, and through my reflexology, and I incorporate that in with my podorthics, which I kind of brought into with this business, I should say. And so that's kind of where Planet for Change came from. And now I do also, but again, it's very multifaceted because I do the weight loss wellness coaching as well, and helping others and show them how it's all very much a collective unit. Is when we take care of our health through what we eat, what we breathe, what we absorb, and it goes beyond what goes in our mouth. And I teach people that, and then I can teach them different things that I do within my wellness coaching, like pantry raids, where I can go in and raid their pantry and find the healthiest foods possible and just whip up a dish for them and show them how easy it is so they're not wasting that food. And then teach them alternatives to buy in place of the ingredients that maybe aren't so healthy. And then menu planning and so forth.
It sounds a very, very holistic, as you've got it there behind you, idea of there's so many elements that you can bring to this. But I love the idea of you walking to my pantry and looking and thinking, what can I make out of what's in here that this person's already got, that they may not have thought about before, and show them that the change is possible right from where you are. I don't need to go shopping for some special ingredient, some magic bit, but you can do almost like alchemy in there. The stuff that we've got, you can do something with it, and it's possible. So I love that idea.
Yes, that was a favorite part of my business, because people would tell me all the time. Again, they would go defaulting back to that, well, I can't afford it. I can't afford organic. I can't afford to do this. I just, and they would buy the cheapest ingredients they could find. They would buy, and then when I showed them that they're actually spending more money doing this, and that if they bought like, beans, for instance, dry in larger quantities and then soak them themselves. I mean, yeah, you have to put a little time into it, but there are ways to prep your food for the week. I would show them things like that on how to create and prep their food and freeze it. And then they would have, just to pull it out, and then they would have an instant dish. But there was, people would say it's so hard to then create things from all these new different ingredients, whereas I had the convenience of these convenience packaged foods, and I could just throw it in the microwave and boom, done. And I said, yeah, but at the expense of your health, it's not worth it. And here's how you can do it differently. Make it creative, make it fun, make it delicious. And, but when I would raid their pantry and show them that they could use, even if they weren't the best ingredients, and I would give them alternatives to choose next time, it would show them how creative they could be. And by developing that creativity in their cooking, they would be able to buy those ingredients that they needed to have that were better for them, and learn how to create creative dishes. And I would do this quickly. These were like 30-minute dishes or less, so they weren't something that took a long time, where these, working moms, for instance, oh, I got to have something quick. I pick up the kids from daycare after work, and I gotta whip up a dinner, and so they would be running through the drive-through of KFC or something. And I'm like, that's not what you want to do. Go home, pull out these ingredients out of your pantry, throw this dish together, and it's much healthier. It's filling, and you're going to feel that difference, and you're going to realize you're doing your body much more justice when you learn some new cooking skills.
I think that's really important what you're saying, because a lot of people say exactly that. It's either I don't have the time or I don't have the money to be healthy. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, I could show you how to do that.
That's right.
Because I've done it. And I think that's fantastic. Karen, as we come down towards the end of our chat, is there anything you would want to say to people who on some part of their journey, either where you're doing all the diets, and it's not happening? What would you say to these people about doing what you've done?
I would say, first and foremost, you have to understand it's not about diets. Diets are not sustainable. It's a lifestyle change. You have to accept it. And I only work with those people who are willing to accept this within themselves, and their mindset is there, that they realize they want it. You have to want it bad enough. And when I say bad enough, I mean, not that, oh, you might backslide or something like that, because we all do that. We're all going to come into those instances where we might want to give up. It's not about that. It's about wanting it bad enough to make it happen, and having an open enough mind to try new things and be adaptable to change. And when you do that, and you have to take your mindset out of that status quo of fad diet revolution that's out there. Oh, well, I need to buy these packaged foods that they sell, and if I buy their packaged foods that they sell with their diet plan, then I'll lose the weight. And they show all these great pictures of all these people losing weight on this. But yeah, well, then what happens after you lose the weight? Do you still have to buy the food? Because it didn't teach you how to cook that food or how to make that change with that food. It just gave you the food. It didn't give you the tools. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is I give the tools, and I build that baseline, and I meet people where they're at. I don't expect them to, oh, you got to be over 400 pounds. No, you don't. Or, it's not going to work if you only got to lose 50. Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at, male, female, child, doesn't matter. You build a baseline, and you build that out from that baseline based on your particular circumstances and needs. And so if it's a tighter budget than Joe over here, and maybe Sally has she's a different culture, so she only eats certain kinds of food, we can adapt that, and we can make that work for the individual. And so I personalize it It's every plan that I make with an individual, just like I do with my podorthics, and my reflexology is very personalized to the individual. So I start with a baseline. I say, this is where we need to start, and you have to be willing to follow me through this and follow my lead on this and build out from there. And I teach you and I give you the tools. I don't just throw it at you and say, now you're on your own, or give it to you and then, okay, that's it. I give you the tools to build it so that you can make it sustainable. And that's important. It's all about educating that person on how they can make it sustainable.
And I think you are the right person for that. So, Karen, I wish you all the best in your ventures. It's been fabulous talking with you. And I look forward to hearing all the other stories of people you've helped along the way. Karen, it's been great.
Thank you, Johnson. It has been wonderful speaking with you today. And yes, I am very motivated to help others also overcome any health issues they might have, any weight issues they might have. If they're looking to de-stress, that helps, them through the reflexology as well. Or if their feet hurt with the podorthics and the orthotics that I make. But I'm here to help them overhaul their health and change their life and learn how to live their life the way they were meant to live their life. And it's all about that lifestyle change, and it's all and it really is starting over. And so that's what I'm here for.
So in the description of this video, we will put your URL and where people can find you on a link, and I'm sure you'll hopefully have loads of people knocking on your door.
Well, I hope so. Because again, with everything that's happened with COVID, I mean, it's more important than now for us to take control of our health, and we have full control of our health when we want to, and so we need to grab onto that and be our own best advocate for change.
Okay, nice speaking to you, Karen. Take care.
Thank you, Jonathan. It was nice.